It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring Firepower and East and West. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring Firepower and East and West. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring Firepower and East and West. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring Firepower and East and West. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash.
3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? It's another Unnamed Indie Comic Show with your boy Ash and the star of the show, Skip and Tosh. We're here to talk about comics and geek out about the things that we love. Hopefully you're reading good comics. Hopefully you're reading Firepower, which is the feature comic of the day, and the big bad boy that we've been plowing through, East of West. We're on Volume 9. We're going to be talking about that. Without any further ado, Skip, how are you today, man? Good to see you. Oh, wait, pause.
Oh.
Sorry.
No
Take
problem.
2. Skip, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Happy to be able to come and talk about some indie comics. I mean, I love to talk about comics as a whole. Obviously, everybody knows, but indie comics have been my favorite for some years now, and we made a whole show about it. So here we are, another episode. We get to talk about them with everyone. So thanks everybody who's here, who showed up, everybody who's checking out the VOD later. We appreciate your time as well, and hope we have another fun and hopefully entertaining, at the very least stimulating show for y'all.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys, don't forget, man, you guys are equally part of the show, I think, as we are. I mean, we're here kind of facilitating the discussion, throwing up the graphics of the books as we talk about them. But we want to hear from you. You guys, what you think about these books. We want to, this is sort of a fan cast. And we like seeing other people getting the joy out of the books as well. So please throw up your comments about, about these books, as well as any other independent books. If you have a book that we haven't talked about and for some reason it's way up your alley, shout out about it, man. Spread the word. We want to hear.
Agreed.
Tonight I'm gonna go on simplistic with the beverage, man. I just got a big tankard of iced tea. But I love me some good iced tea. What are you drinking tonight?
I'm back with the classic. I guess it's becoming a theme here. I didn't play basketball today, but nonetheless, I chugging down some Gatorade. I finished up fruit punch earlier. Now I'm on Cool Blue. So yeah, I guess get my electrolytes. I did have a very, very long day yesterday. I started at like 7 something in the morning and ended at like 2 something at night. I had to go help my family with some stuff like late in the night, and then Jimmy and I are going to be doing a few different review videos. So we ended up watching an episode of Doctor Who. Wow, how do I mess that one up? But Doctor Who late in the night. So I was up with Jimmy till like 2, and then I finally fell asleep at like 2:30. So it's been a long one. It was a marathon essentially. I guess I do still need some Gatorade for today.
What? No kidding, man. What you need sounds like some Gatorade with caffeine. Why don't they make that? Caffeinated Gatorade.
Oh my gosh, I think it's the equivalent of like steroids. So
seems like a missed opportunity.
Maybe, who knows? I remember this one time, like the first time I drank like one of those. There were like sports beverages that were like energized, I remember, and I was playing in the basketball league. I guess today would be like AAU, and we had a back-to-back game, and I don't know what it was, but like a lot of our players ended up not being able to be there, like sick or hurt or something. So we only had 5 players. We only had our starting 5 for both games. And I remember like the first game I didn't take anything, and then my mom was like, "How are you feeling?" I'm like, I'm okay. I got asthma, so I'm like, okay, as long as you got my inhaler and I got some water, I should be fine. And she was like, I got you this power bar for y'all that remember power bars back in the day. She got me a vanilla crunch power bar, and then she got me some drink that must be like of the Four Loco persuasion. Not that it's alcoholic, but like was a little too strong, so it went away for a while, and they had to like tweak with the formula. And I don't even remember what it was called, but she was like, hey, like, get both of these in your system for the next game start. So I just remember like I loved power bars, so I scarfed that thing down, and then I was chugging on that thing, and I think the drink I only drank like half of it or whatever. And all I remember is in the next game, I was like bouncing all over the place. I was trying to defend everybody's man. I got called for like 2 fouls super early. My coach was like, "You gotta chill because we can't have anybody foul out." Well, like I can't foul out. So basically, if I would have kept fouling people, then every time I would have fouled them, it just would have been free throws like automatically. But I've never have been. That must have been like the equivalent of feeling like the mania that you get from steroids, because I felt like I was out of control.
Oh yeah,
So
like Roy raging.
Roy raging, man, all over the place. So Ash, I think you are onto something, but I think it might just be a little unsafe right now.
Yeah, that could be a thing for sure is a problem. Um, this is something we do. We do the show every 2 weeks generally. In between that time when we do the shows, obviously, hopefully, we're reading comics and stuff. Are there any comics aside from the feature ones, that we're going to be talking about, or that we do on the show? Are there any comic books that maybe you wanted to kind of give a shout out, whether you've talked about them before, but they're just still going on great, or maybe you discovered a book or anything you've been reading the past couple weeks you just want to shout out to?
Crap, I've been reading so many. I'll give a shout out to a few. I want to give another shout out to the Silver Coin, is that what's called? Silver? I believe it is called the Silver Coin. It's somewhere around here within arm's reach. Really enjoyed that. It's kind of like it's like a horror comic in a sense, like, you know, be careful what you wish for type of thing, and the things that you feel like you want the most can sometimes change you in ways that you don't expect. So that one I really enjoyed. I almost feel like it's a little bit of the persuasion of like Ice Cream Man, which is my favorite book right now. I read Haha #4. That was very delightful, and I know it for those of y'all who know anything about Haha. It's written by W. Maxwell Prince, the same author as Ice Cream Man. So like delightful and like this weird horror type book, like existential fear horror type book. Yeah, it had those elements in it, but there's in the Haha books there seems to be a little bit more of like a positive theme as you get through all the bad stuff or the horror stuff, whatever you want to call it. So that was delightful to read. It was a book that I was interested in for a long time, and I finally started to read it. It's called Gunning for Hits. It was written by a former A&R for maybe multiple record labels. I forget, but yeah, interesting. I've been on a kick about like music comics, like more and more and more. So that one was really good. I finished up issue #1, and I really enjoyed the ending. The whole book. So I ordered the rest of the series.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. I got up on the screen just as a little addendum, FYI, for any of you guys. Gunning for Hits issue #1 is available free on Comixology right now. So for anyone else that is curious about a music comic like this, check it out. I'm adding it to my cart right now.
Yeah, check it out. You'll be interested. If any of y'all out there, you don't have to be into music, but for me, I was someone who has like music industry experience, entertainment experience down in LA, and dealt with those types of people and like managed artists and was an artist and all of that stuff. It like for me, it hit home while also being entertaining, and bringing in like, just natural twists and storytelling elements and stuff that you didn't expect. So it was really good. And there was some, I mean, I read, I think Chariot, but I think we might have talked about that before. I bought a bunch of books and I've been reading like just like crazy. So a
Oh,
lot of them. But what about you,
you
Ash?
don't got to shout out everything. I totally understand. We got to say something for the next episode.
Right.
I discovered a book a long time ago, and I added it, and I just didn't ever get around to reading it fully. And it was called The Warning, and you can get it on Comixology. The first trade paperback, unlimited. First issue is also available free. It's very interesting to me, and I think this book is going to appeal to the certain kind of reader, probably like the books you suggest, with the music and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This type of reader I think it's going to appeal to is like the hardcore military sci-fi person. Do you like reading Tom Clancy books with lots of military jargon and just that sort of stuff? This book is going to be up that alley. It doesn't read like a comic book. As a matter of fact, as I was reading it, I was getting very confused at the way the narrative was structured, because it was bouncing back and forth between like 5 hours ago, last week, this, and it wasn't really telling a straightforward narrative. It was just kind of letting you sort of like be a fly on the wall during a military operation. So you'd get to see a bunch of people. But I think the people that are into that and hearing the dialogue feel more authentic. I'm not going to say authentic, but more authentic than you would get in your normal comic book. I have a feeling whoever wrote this probably has a lot of military experience, so at least can like talk like a military. But it just feels like that. But on top of that, it's not a straightforward military book. It is a sci-fi kind of superpower book. The main character you see here on the cover of the first issue is he's one of the main characters. But he's part of this group called Gladiator 26. As just even that name itself, right, doesn't sound like a normal like superhero team. It's not the Justice League. It sounds like military. And they're a super special special ops team. But there's been a little bit of government intervention. Looks like maybe some aliens have landed on the planet. They're like the last resort. It's got some cool stuff. And because you can check out the first whole trade on Comixology Unlimited, I recommend, if anything that I said sounds interesting to you, if I like perk your ears up, give this one a shot, because it's very different than your typical books. It doesn't feel like it's written by comic people. It feels like it's written by military people. And that may be good for you or bad for you, depending on your taste. I very much enjoyed it. But like I said, it's gonna depend. The other book I just want to shout out is Invincible. I started checking that book, giving it a second chance. I read it, maybe a year ago, I want to think. I don't know. Not all of it. I just read like the first trade, and I was like, it's all right. It was fine. But it didn't really do much. But now that I've been watching the show, letting the show warm up on me, I'm like, yeah, it's not the perfect thing, but there are things that it does right. I'm enjoying this. And obviously having to wait a week for each episode, it makes me kind of go, I want more story. I'm going to get my fix. So I've been going back to the book, and it's actually made me appreciate the book even more, because the book is even more well written than the show. And it's allowing me to see it with a new eye, new frame of reference. And I've just been enjoying it. It's not my favorite book out there, but anyways, I think that's a good thing for people to check out if you like superhero books and you're not happy with what Marvel and DC are doing. That's one thing I've really noticed going back to it, is like, wow, I just wish Robert Kirkman were writing Marvel or DC, because whether or not you like the Invincible universe or his take on what he's doing, he at least knows how to write characters and keep you engaged. So anyways, that's what I've been doing. I just wanted to shout out. If any of you guys in the audience been reading stuff, shout out your picks. We'd love to hear them, and we'll shout them out back.
I want to give out a shout out to something real quick
Yeah, go
since
for
we're
it, man.
kind of on the indie book thing. I still have not read like a full series from TKO. I was in one of my local comic shops and I went over to where they have the trades, mostly the hardcovers actually. I threw a picture in the live chat thing if you want to just take a look at it yourself, Ash. It's a very quick video while I'm talking. But TKO, they had, I was a little curious about what TKO was going to do. I'd seen mostly digital releases from them, and you had talked about Sarah, which naturally piqued my interest because you said it was a very different approach for Garth Ennis than what most people are used to getting from Garth Ennis. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep that on my radar. I already have Sentient from Jeff Lemire and Gabriel Walta. And I was in that shop and I looked over in that section where the hardcovers are. I was looking for actually Criminal Volume 1 from Image, oddly enough. And I'm glad that they didn't have it there because I went and it wasn't in the new book section. I was looking over at those hardcovers and I saw that there was a bunch of TKO books over there. But it was interesting. They weren't hardcovers. They weren't trade paperbacks. They were like in these little boxes that if people kind of know what it looks like, what like tapes kind of used to come in, or even like old little reel to reels, certain little media. There's these like boxes where you have to kind of pull them apart to see what's inside. I went over there. I grabbed, there was several of them, but of course I went to Sarah because that's in my mind because of Ash. And I opened it up, and it's really interesting how they do their collected editions. They have them in those 2-part boxes. You open them up inside, and inside of it, it is not a trade paperback. It is not a hardcover. It is the individual issues sewed up together in like a little like plastic shrink wrap inside. And that was very, very interesting to me, like how they decided to package them. I was delighted because, you know, as me personally, I really appreciate trade paperbacks for a lot of the reasons that Ash would talk about on the show. Especially like I grew an affinity for the Image trade paperbacks because the first volume is like always $10, very affordable, get you into the series, you can read it. But I personally really like floppies. Like if it's a book that I'm gonna get into, I would prefer to have the floppies. It's interesting to me that this is how TKO is doing it. Like the collected edition, you don't have to worry about tracking down the individuals. And if you would like a trade paperback all in one, I guess it would be the opposite experience for you. But for me, it was cool how they packaged them. I think they went the extra mile in surprising and delighting people that are interested in those books. They do it in a way to where it already stands out when you're looking at it. There you go. Ash has got it up there. It stands out when you're looking at it on the shelf. And then when you open it up, you do get the advantage of having all of the different artwork for the single issues, which sometimes, not always, they put in the back of trade paperbacks. But I just thought it was cool and it was kind of different and a nice little way that they're setting themselves apart from the rest of the publishers out there.
Yeah, this is so it's a slipcase, I think is what the term you were looking for.
Slipcase, yes.
And it is pretty cool. It is very cool for people that are coming from your perspective, that want this. It's, if I were in your shoes, this would be absolutely, I'd be through the moon with this. I personally prefer collected, but that's great because guess what? Here they offer collected version. Boom, you can get it all in one binding. So you get the best of both worlds. If you're like me, you can get that. If you're like Skip, you can get the comics. The reason I don't like the floppies this way, and it's a personal measure, is because if you're going to sell them all on the same day, it's kind of weird. I don't feel like I'm collecting floppies. I feel like it's just making it a little bit more inefficient reading experience. But that's going to be completely subjective to the user. And like I said, they give you both. My only complaint about TKO at this point is that Sarah is so good. I wish there was a hardcover. Like, this is a beautiful book. And that slipcase is actually cool for that aspect, though. I guess that's the next best thing to a nice hardcover is having that slipcase. It's going to look beautiful on your bookshelf. And all your books can be nicely stored inside and kept pristine. So yeah, it's really cool. This is a great book. Great shout out. Let's see.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and it is good to know that you can still do trade paperback. You know, pay the 19.99 and get them in that format because it looks like they have those there too. But yeah, right below it, for I guess for 29.99, you could do their little slipcase setup. So it looks like there's some options out there. Probably once they get further along and they get more of a following, they may be able to, you know, everything is a risk when you're a newer publisher. So hopefully, if you know, outlets like us continue to support these books and talk about it, it'll get out enough, and they can throw their money and say, hey, let's try a oversized hardcover and see if we can have that be profitable for us.
For sure, yeah. This it would have to be definitely. They would have to know, and maybe Sarah is popular enough. This is probably one of their most popular books that they've done. I've read it. I can vouch for it. I think it's a beautiful book. It has something to say about war, and it has, you know, and people and what it does to people, but it's not done in a trite way. It's not done in a cliche way, in my opinion. And the beautiful art by Epting to go along with it. Yeah, like I said, this is a book I would happily pay for a hardcover and have on your bookshelf for those reasons. Let's see. Tehillim is giving a shout out to the Bridge. Says how about you pick up Peter J. Tomasi's The Bridge? It's an indie book. Have you ever heard of this book?
The Bridge. Tehillim? Am I mistaken in that is the book that Tomasi released under Jeff Johns' Mad Ghost imprint through Image?
I believe it's here. It says it's from Abrams Books.
Oh, Abrams Books. Okay, I'm even less familiar with it than I thought I was before.
So I just found it on the website, and you can see some stuff going across the screen here for those of you.
Okay.
And this was a book. I guess Peter Tomasi is a big fan of like the building of the Brooklyn Bridge, and there's apparently a lot of history on how it was made and a lot of story, I guess, there. And so he did a graphic novel about this. And
that's cool.
I gotta say, it's a tough sell to be like, hey, you want to read a graphic novel about a building of a bridge? I do like Peter Tomasi. I hope it's really good. I don't know if this is the subject matter alone. I'm admitting my prejudice. I want to read it. I don't know if I want to cough up $25 to give it a shot. That's the tough thing. But if anyone else that's read this book, by all means, let me know, because I do like the creator, and I do like, you know, interesting stories of history and stuff. So maybe that's something worth checking out. Let's see. FF2 says, sorry I'm late. Well, we're sorry that we were on time. I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. David Sonowich in the chat says his problem with the trade paperbacks is that you can't open them all the way like a floppy. Do you have that experience?
You know what? It's funny that he pointed that out, because it's something that I have had that experience with a lot of them, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I started to really enjoy hardcovers, because of how well most of them are bound. You get more of a spread, and majority of the time, at least, it's like not like I have to pull them apart with both hands. Maybe I have to leave my left hand to keep it open or my right hand to keep it open. But that is something that I don't enjoy about trade paperbacks. It doesn't bother me enough to pass up on them if I see them for a good price. But it's funny. I recently, like, I guess the happy medium is I've been buying a lot of trade paperbacks that are not, I guess, paperbacks. They've been hardcovers. So I got Jonathan Hickman's Shield, which I got that in a small hardcover, the trade size hardcover. I got his Ultimates run in a hardcover, and I'm fortunate enough that I have another shop in downtown Sacramento, where they have a whole wall of like trades, and majority of them, that I don't know where they went and got all these like Marvel hardcover trades, but they're all half off. So I've just been like snagging them left and right because I'm not paying even close to full price for them.
Wow, that's great. 50% off. Whew. I thought I was stoked. I found a store near me that sells all graphic novels and trades for 30% off. And I was like,
Oh, that's really good.
But you got the 50. You're just like, step down, Ash. Step down. I was like, damn it.
It is a competition, isn't it?
Right. So yeah, let's see. FF2 suggests the mini deaths of Layla Starr. He says for us to check it out. So I got that up on the screen. It's a Boom Studios. It's relatively new. He's not the first person I've heard suggest this book. Have you heard about this book?
Yeah, he's not the fifth person that I've heard suggest this book. I've been hearing a lot about it. It is from Arthur Ramvey. I'm not familiar off the top of my head with who's doing the art from it, but Ramvey is someone who's hot and up and coming. He's in a crew along with Dan Waters, whom I'm a big fan of. Dan Waters from Coffin Bound, as well as Limbo and Homesick Pilots. And I've read Blue and Green. I enjoyed it. I still have not read Swamp Thing, and I still have not read Catwoman. So I can't say I've read any of the big two books from Ramvey, although I have Swamp Thing. But I keep hearing people talk about it, and I started following Ramvey recently, and so I know I've seen it through that feed. But people continue to talk about this book, and when people like FF2 come in here and they endorse it, it does. Like I told FF2 in the chat, I'm like, that's it. You're like someone like you coming in. You're coming in the chat and you're telling us, like, I trust your taste. I'm getting it, no doubt.
According to the website here, it is by superstar artist Felipe Andrade. I might be butchering the name, but got some of the art samples up here on the screen for some of you guys to see, so you can tell for yourself. I've heard great things about this. If you're going to check it out, I think I'm going to check it out too. Maybe this could be a contender for a future feature. Hopefully, we could always use more good books. That is for sure.
Indeed. Yeah, we've got Firepower likely will continue to go on. It seems like it's going to continue, but with only one more issue of Decorum left, we've got space to bring in a new series, and
yeah, that's true. We're gonna need a replacement for Decorum. Mm-hmm. But thank you guys for giving some shout outs. It's a lot of work for us to be trying to do all the finding and suggesting to you. It's nice when people can discover stuff for us and throw some suggestions our way. I don't have too much of a problem with the trade paperback, going back to that question. Mm-hmm. But usually my trades, I don't treat them like comics. I kind of like, they're more like, I've always thought of them as like a mass market paperbacks when you buy books. Like you can just totally just bend them open. I'm never trying to really keep them pristine. So maybe people are trying to keep their books a little nicer condition than I am. I don't know.
It could be the case. You definitely have to break the glue, and maybe that's something I should just do right out the gate. Like just get that glue all nice and loose, and then maybe I won't have to worry about it as much.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think let's see. Teelam says he's getting the latest issue of Nuclear Family. I haven't heard of that book. Is that a book? Let's get on to not this book. That's the wrong screen. Let's get on to this book. Firepower is the feature. This is one of the books that we feature every week. For those of you guys that may not have watched previous episodes, what we do is this is sort of like a fan cast about books that we love reading. It's not here to be hypercritical or to talk about books that we don't think are very good. This is just purely here to gush love over books that we like and advocate for them, and hopefully get you enthusiastic about them as well, so that you'll read them, enjoy them, and then want to come back and talk about them with us. One of the books that we feature on the show, we just keep going issue after issue, is Firepower. And we've been having a lot of fun theory casting about this, where we think where we think it's going to go, what we think is really happening, what's really going on. this is one of my favorite books, and doing this show is just only adds to the enjoyment. I wish every book I read we could do shows on like this, because it just makes it so much better, I think, to not just read it, put it away, and move on, but to keep yourself engaged in it, talking about it, seeing other perspectives that maybe you didn't consider the first time. How are you enjoying it? Did number 10 keep you going, or did it just shoot you out of the water and go, I'm done with this book?
No, not at all. I continue to enjoy it. It served its purpose. Excuse me, not to bring up anything too controversial, but I guess comic book TV shows can be that these days. I felt like this served the purpose that episode number 5 of Falcon and Winter Soldier served. No spoilers talking about it, but just it is a setup to the next big thing. So with dynamic storytelling, you ramp it things up, and then you might kind of stay at that level for a second and maybe go up a little bit more, then dip down, and then start, and then you dip down hard, before you really go back up, almost like a roller coaster. So I believe it served its purpose. It still continues to have masterful art. Chris Samney is still knocking out of the park with all of his visual storytelling. Robert Kirkman is, steering the ship along as far as where the characters need to be and what the relationships look like and the reveals. So I was not disappointed at all. At first, I finished reading it and I was like, huh. And then I let it sink in. I just didn't run with my my base reaction. And I say, okay, I see what this did. And if I look at it for what it was intended to be, it did that just as well as it had before.
All right. Well, good. Do you think you're ready to get along with your synopsis that you do oh so well?
Yeah, sure. I'll piggyback off of Robert Kirkman himself first. So
Alrighty.
previously, locked in midair combat, Omen hit the Serpent's Omen with a fireball, only for them to burst into a ball of snakes. With all the energy he could summon, Owen shot a tremendous fireball at the ground, narrowly avoiding death. He awoke in a strange island, with an old enemy, Chunzul, standing over him. Yet the reunions were far from over. Yet the reunions were far from over. His family, Wei Lun, even Ma Guang, were on the island, watched from the shadows by Chaozul's daughter, Ling Zong. And that kind of sets us up to where we are now. We start the first scene is we got Ma Guang and Owen really just talking and kind of leveling. I think this is the first time that they've gotten to talk without fist flying since we've seen them in issue number 1, if I remember correctly. Their meetup, their encounter in the grocery store, and then their meetup on the football court later in the night. And I mean, even that alone is kind of its own mini scene before we go over to the next page. How did this scene land for you, Ash?
I apologize. I was in the middle of doing stuff in the background here. Where did you end on the scene?
This one, really just the first 2 pages. They did make it a really tight and nice mini scene with Owen and Ma Guang being able to have a conversation.
Gotcha.
Without their martial arts, doing the talking for them.
Yeah. I like this. I mean, it's a nice kind of calm before the storm kind of opening. The comic, if you're taking it as a whole, I've been reading every issue. The last few issues have been very fast-paced, hectic, a lot of action. So this sort of calm and being able to have a little bit of character relation with each other is kind of warranted. And Kirkman doesn't waste too much time. He achieves a lot in 2 pages.
Absolutely. That goes back to the masterful storytelling between both of them as a pair, Chris Samney and Robert Kirkman. I mean, literally just in 2 pages, they can open something up let it breathe, and then they can put a pin in it. But from this one, and Ma Guang and Owen kind of acknowledging, the things that they didn't believe about each other's story, having some validity on both sides, and that put them in a place where, bygones are bygones, so to speak. Owen goes to back to, let's say, his palace room,
Right.
so to speak, because it's pretty posh and lush. So much
Yeah,
so that
those simple monks live pretty extravagant.
yeah, one would say. I mean, I guess like the less clothes you have, the more extravagant your room accommodations can be. We'll
Maybe
go
it's
with
just the
it.
guest quarters. Maybe everyone else is living a simple life, and they're like, "But we treat everyone else that visits us like kings and queens." I
that
don't know.
that could be the case. Let's say that it is. But he goes back. His wife is in there. She likes it so much. Even she is complimenting it, asking like, "Hey, could we stay for a vacation?" Once this is all over, of course. And they talk, and Owen jokes. Yep, still apologizing. He's very sympathetic that he is, part of the reason why they're. I mean, kind of the key reason why they're going through what they're going through. But in that moment, a romantic scene is able to unravel, and as they're laying down to, let's say, make play patty cake, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Off in the distance, we see that there is a shadowy figure looking over to them, and it appears to be Ling Zan, as we Lin Zhang, as we know that she is still alive, and now she's witnessing the life that Owen, and the love that Owen has found and created since their separation of deception. Again, another type 2 pager. Ash, tell me how you felt.
This is a powerful scene, and I gotta tell you, just to be as for transparency, I hate love triangles. I
Mhm.
struggle. I don't think I can think of a single time in any story I've ever read or watched in a movie or whatever where a love triangle I thought was done to the like. Oh, I actually like. There may be some exceptions out there, but I don't know them. And this was making me a little bit iffy. But that's only because my mind was jumping ahead. I actually don't know. There's no love triangle here yet. We just know that Owen has a history with her and she sees what's going on. So we immediately feel the emotions because we're human. Hopefully, you guys are human. Um, and I like that there's no dialogue. Kirkman
Mhm.
doesn't need a single ounce. Well, he's got dialogue on the first page of the scene, but that's between the wife. But the next, we can feel what's going on with Lin Zhang because it just works so what's so elegantly. Like I
Mhm.
so appreciate a writer that doesn't feel the need to fill up every single panel with word balloons and dialogue or narrator boxes or whatever. It's like show me a story, tell me through the pictures. That's part of your job. I mean, it's the artist's job to render it, but it's your job when you're creating a story to let the scene tell. You're not writing a novel. It's not up to you to put words, everything. Like, you should be able to say, in this scene, this happens, and this is telling my story in this way through the imagery. And just me more gushing praise about how Kirkman is one of the few writers today that understands how to do this.
Yeah, I agree with with your compliments to Kirkman and Samney. Elegant is the perfect word for that. And after that elegant ending to that scene, and I do, kind of want to let people that are listening and watching along know we do get quite a few of mini scenes before we start to get longer ones. So again, as I reiterate, this issue is very much setting things up, so we get a bunch of small ones, and then we get a few more longer ones, but you will see how they're all kind of leading up to a big battle, at least from what we're seeing here. We go over to the next scene. We've got seagulls flying, a nice establishing shot transition panel, if you will. We got the family in the kitchen, kids at the table eating breakfast. We got Owen and his wife over there, and then in comes Master Wei Lun. Just let him know he's happy to see that they're pleased, but there will be a cost, and the cost will be a slightly used husband, just indicating that it's time for Owen to come along, and we've got to continue to prepare for this battle, the Temple of the Flaming Fist versus the Scorched Earth clan. As Waylon and Owen are walking to the meeting place, they are just having a little bit of banter. Of course, Owen is telling us, saying something that we all know how peculiar Master Waylon is. And if peculiar means that you wear Jordans and no kung fu, color me peculiar. But or I guess for me it'd be Taekwondo, Jiu-Jitsu, and Judo. But Wei Lun lets him know it's time for him to get his tattoo, and Chris Samney puts that look of worry, concern, and wonder on Owen's face, like, a tattoo? What? And sure enough, they go over, and at the entrance to the meeting place is Chinzul welcoming Owen in. An introduction to his inner circle begins. We get quite a few new people. I won't name all of their names right now, but we do get their various areas of expertise. It was 4 people, 5 if you include Wei Lun, who we've already been introduced to. And Chinzul is just letting Owen know, like, there's a lot of expectation. The numbers are stacked against us. Chao Fang has had brought in countless students over to the Temple of the Flaming Fist, so we're outnumbered there. But we need, that's why it's so important that we're so strategic about how we approach them. And Owen's like, okay, well, where is our hope coming from? And everybody looks at him and as the hope, and they're like, well, we have you. And he's like, oh, okay, no pressure. So it seems like, outside of making some very, very very tight and tactical plans, their battering ram, their one punch, if you will, is Owen. Ash, did you feel a little bit of how Owen felt as he was rubbing his neck, like, okay, all on me, huh?
Very, very much so. I also, for you Among Us players out there, I thought there was a little bit of sus going on.
Yeah, indeed.
For those of you who don't have a clue what I'm talking about, suspect, I was a little bit of like little red flags, little things warning me that the tattoo part, because if you remember, Owen's parents had the tattoo of the Scorched Earth clan,
Right.
And at the time, the whole idea of having the tattoo, the Scorched Earth clan was framed as being sort of the traitors and all this stuff, and Owen's family was traitors because and so getting this tattoo, and then of course the whole thing about just getting a tattoo in general, it raises an eyebrow to me, like, why do you force people to get tattoos, like, to be part of your thing? It could be innocent. It could just be whatever, but it makes me kind of go, whoa. And I don't know if that's just a subjective reaction to me that I'm having, but this comic's already thrown curveballs multiple times. And for the first time as I was reading this, because I believe it's you have been suspect of the master. Wait, was it Wei Lun? Gosh, these names are so hard to remember. You've been suspect of him in the past. I'm like, no, he's good. Like, trust him. And now for the first time, I'm like, oh, is he really good? Are we going to get the crazy curveball at the end that he's the bad guy all along? Like, I just don't know. And it's nothing is overtly done here. It's if that is the case, if I am reading it, it's so subtle. Like, I really feel like I'm reading into it. And I'm trying to talk myself out of it, but then the more I start talking myself out of it, the more I go, well, wait, maybe you're supposed to talk yourself out of this. Like, Kirkman. It's like, so yeah. And I do feel that pressure. Like, why is he the only one? Like, yeah, come on, Owen. We're going to stop the entire Flaming Fist. We got you. We have failed for thousands of years or however long, right? Like, your parents failed. Like, we've always been failing because we didn't have you. Now we've got you. Do it for us. Oh. I don't know.
Yeah, the sus is strong with this one. Yeah, I was suspecting, and we still don't know, but I'm with you, Ash. The more that we go along, the more I'm curious about Wayland, and it could totally be that, not that he, is a bad person, but it could be as simple as everyone has their own selfish interests, and if Owen, himself, because of the power that he possesses, is just a means to an end to people, just a tool to be used, then it could be that, it could be as simple as, like, both sides wanted him just because of what he can do, but not because of who he is, and he's just this kind of innocent person in the middle that didn't ask for the power that he has, only simply wanted to find out who his family was, and and got taken for a ride, if you will, along the way. But things like this are part of the reason why we enjoy this type of writing for Kirkman, because we want to go on the ride, we want to find the answers, and it's not just we want to find the answer, but the ride itself is pretty satisfying along the way.
Absolutely.
Speaking of taking rides, we got two on over to the next scene. We got two big blimps in the air. People are ready to saddle up and ride the maybe not so friendly skies over to the temple, or excuse me, the Temple of the Flaming Fist clan to let some fists fly. Owen and his wife on the balcony. She's talking about, how it'd be nice if how life has changed so much. She was setting to be a detective, and now all of a sudden we got this big old battle. Owen's kind of trying to look past it all. He's not someone that just does love to fight, but he's like, if we can go and have this battle, and then we can end this, and we can be able to move on with our lives and go back home. As he, him searching for his family to find out who they are and not getting the answers, what's the next best thing a person in Owen's shoes can do? Create his own family, build his own, and heavily invest in that. And that's what he has. So that's what he wants to get back to at this point. He's had about enough of all this, mystical, magical, martial arts world that he's been pulled back into. His daughter's feeling the heat, as she normally is. So she comes out barking and yelling about him possibly getting killed in battle and being concerned. And, as a good father that he is, he, kind of levels with her, even to the point of, bending down and getting eye to eye with her. And then here comes the son running after that tender moment, saying, hey, group hug. And sure enough, they have a group hug. And and he gives a snarky little, or it's funny little joke. Hey, can I come? I can fight. I can totally come with you. And we get another end to a small scene, little slice of life. How did that hit for you, Ash?
I really liked this scene. And this is one of the things I think that makes Firepower like special to me. You could have just done a direct kung fu book, and Owen could have been a big warrior fighting people, and maybe that would have been fun and exciting or whatever. But honestly, as this book goes on, the family aspects add a dynamic to it that separate it from other books, that would just be more commonplace. I really like Kirkman's writing here, and as I get older, as I become kind of middle-aged man, like I feel old. But anyways, I start appreciating kids more. It's weird. When I was in my 20s, I probably would have been like, oh, get the stupid brat out of here, But I appreciate kids, and I especially appreciate when kids are written well. And I really like how this daughter, she's written, and because she's written from a point that real kids are, where they don't have a complete view of the world. Their view of the world is very like tunnel vision, and they don't have a greater understanding. So she's just like, how am I supposed to go, back to school and this, and like, well, school's not the only part of your world. Like, like I'm saying, like she can only relate it in her terms. And I love that, because I'm relating to kids her age all the time. So that's rings true to me, and I appreciate that. And I also like the wife aspect, because so many times I feel like we would be expecting the wife to be like, oh, how dare you go off and leave your family and, and do all this stuff and play the victim, while the husband has to save or things like that. But I like how his wife really is not just an understanding wife. Like, she feels like she's a partner wife. Like I feel as a man, this is a type of woman I would want to be married to, that is like, I'm going to be your partner on this. And she has this really cool saying, here, where as he's talking to his daughter and he's like, oh, Haley, come on, don't worry about me. I'll be fine, doing the, the normal dad thing. Don't worry, I'll be good. And then, the wife, she's like, don't. You fight, we worry. And I thought that was a really cool scene of dialogue there, because it was a really cool way to show, like, hey, we're really worried. We're scared, but not in the normal way. We're not going to manifest that in the normal way that you see most writers express it. We're here for you. We're going to support you, but you don't get to tell us not to be afraid. And I don't know, I did something about the way that, and again, it's done in a few words. It wasn't over the top. That elegant writing always impresses me. The less words a writer can use to achieve what they're trying to say, the more it impresses me. And Kirkman just does it here. And again, like I said, I feel for these people. When you care about the characters, the events that they're embroiled in matter so much more. And that's why these scenes are so good to me. Not because they themselves I love to read over and over, but because they make the rest of the book, when the action does happen, it makes it matter.
Absolutely. These are those little investments, that have completely stacked up over time, and we see the stakes, we see what's at stake, the preciousness of what Owen has built, and the main thing that he's really looking to protect. In a way, he had moved past the question. He went on that journey in the prelude, and he got as far as seems like he was going to get, and he went and built his own. But now what he has built is, in a sense, being threatened because of his past, because of the question that he had asked and the answers that he was seeking for his family. And he is, more than anything, that seems to be the real reason why he wants to go into battle. He just wants to get it over with so he can get back to what's precious to him.
Right.
All right. And speaking of that, his past does continue to come back around. We go over to a scene later on with Chinzul and his daughter Lingzan. She's gearing up. She's putting on the same garb that we had seen from the ninjas that were in Owen's room and even hiding in the trees, kind of scoping him out at the end of the prelude. And she, says, even though I don't want Owen to know that I'm alive, doesn't mean that I'm sitting this one out. She wants to be a part of the fight. Same thing. She's got a family investment in this. And so she also wants to do her part to protect her family. So she is going to go into the fight without revealing herself. Those are her plans. And she does state that she wants to spare Owen the pain. So there is still some appreciation for the person that Owen is, even to the point where she wants to protect him against, some of the deception that she took place in. I won't end it on, well, yeah, actually, was that literally like a one-page scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was. Ash, it's on you.
Yeah, I kind of grouped it with the rest, but I can see, now it's a very tight scene. It did everything you just basically explained. There's not really a lot to add to it. Lingzan is very much still a mystery, right? The one thing that this scene reminds me of is just that we don't know what the heck happened to her. We last left her in the Prelude graphic novel. We thought she was dead, and she's back. Okay, great, but why is she back? And more importantly, why is she back and she's working for the side that we thought killed her? Like, none of these
Right.
things have really been addressed. And Kirkman is way too crafty of a writer to just be this all like a mistake or be lazy. Like, this all matters. And he's making us drool. He's just holding it out for us like a nice juicy steak and being like, smell it. Yeah. You're gonna have to wait more issues before we get to this. And you're just like, oh, damn you. But it's good. It keeps us glued. That's what this scene does for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, nice and tight. I am, getting an education and how to continue a scene, how to go through a scene and have it be so succinct and concise while totally fulfilling. And I don't feel cheated at all by these little scenes that we're going through. I can count in so many other books, that we won't mention from the big two, how things like this come about. And I definitely feel like, they shook they shook additional money out of my pocket when I already paid, $4, $5 for their book. But I just don't feel like this. And again, it just goes back into honing your craft, really caring, going into it, and also getting, no pun intended, on the same page with the people in your creative team to deliver such an experience. So out the window for Ling Zong, and same thing out the window for Owen. He's waving to everyone out of the window of the blimp. All of the people that are on that island, his family and others, giving him that send off, letting him know he really is their hope. And they wish him well, hope that he brings back a victory. His family, of course, overall, hoping that he just stays safe. And now we start to go a little bit further down that sus alley that Ash was bringing up. Master Wei Lun letting Owen know, like, hey, there's something I've kept from you. Owen's asking the question that we're asking, like, what? There's something else? Like,
there's
how
something else you've been keeping? There's more?
Right. There can't be more. Probably best not to ask. This guy, Wei Lun, is, if he's full of two things, a few things, pop culture references, a love for Jordans, and secrets. He says your parents, Chao Fang, killed them. And I feel the way that Owen feels. It's just like, he just says, oh, it's like, how much more can he be stunned? He's just already been so shocked and shaken by all of this whole experience. He says they were trying, Master Wei Lun says they were trying to tell me about the truth of the temple and the Scorched Earth clan. If they'd succeeded, this conflict would have been long over. And Owen, yeah, he's just like, first my parents, then Ling Zong. And he's just like, I'm ready to take these guys down. Let's just, like, I was already ready to get it over with so I can get back to my family. But my past too, he's affected my past as well. My origin, as well as, maybe one of the first true loves I found when I was, your student in the Temple of the Flaming Fist. I already had the stakes in the ground on this guy, but I'm gonna go ahead and drive him down level with the cement. Let's take this guy out, and the blimps move on. Ash?
Yeah, this was the total sus scene. Everything actually played out pretty nice, I think, for me. This, the Chao Fang killed your parents, kind of played down the Obi-Wan, oh, Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father. Like this is kind of like, I just can't help but think that this scene is not the truth of this scene is not what is on the surface, right? Same as the Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father. That's not exactly how it was. Like, and this second panel on page 2 here is the sus scene, where it's just like, it feels so emotionally manipulative. We see, if you get the panel before, you see, was it Wei Lun? God, I'm having so much. I keep want to say like Fei Lun and Wei Lun. It just, I don't know, the way he's standing there, just like, and Owen is taking in the emotional manipulation. I'm saying emotional manipulation because that's a hypothesis. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. It could be true, and he's mad for a reason. Like, okay, fine. But this next panel, with a panel within a panel, and you see the anger on his face, and then just like kind of, why show Wei Lun like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm the writer, and I'm not as nearly a writer as Robert Hickman, but I think you would write the scene, if this is all true and straightforward, all we need to see is Owen's face, his reaction. Let's get these bastards, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But since we see Wei Lun reacting to him, it's more like, why is Wei Lun wanting to see how Owen reacts? And again, it's like suspect. But then again, is that just red herring? That's Robert Hickman? Just you don't really know. I'm keeping you, like, damn you. And then we just go into the battle.
Absolutely. I mean, for him to wait to have to or to really pay attention to the response in the way that he was looking with that cocked corner eye, almost trying to hide his own reaction to Owen's reaction. Yeah, it just makes us want to keep an additional eye on Wei Lun. Something's going on there, and of course we don't know what it is, but he got Owen even more riled up. And I mean, hey, even it could go two ways. Maybe it is the truth and we're finding more now. I'll tell you, Wei Lun always finds like the not so great times to tell Owen these things.
Right.
Either that or he picks the worst times. Like, God, get it together. Like, come on. Either that or, hey, we need a little extra fire in the furnace, pun intended, before we go into this firefight.
Right.
Can I fan the flames? That alone, and we've seen characters like this in various movies and different storytelling mediums where they rouse someone up, and then that person helps secure the victory, and then later on they tell them, hey, I just or even like in sports especially, like I heard that dude said something about your mama. He said what? Like I'm about to go knock this guy's block off. Hey, he didn't really say anything about your mama. Like, well, I almost killed that guy. Like we've seen that before, and it could be as simple as that. But even though that's lower on the totem pole as far as like the screwed up meter, it's still jacked up, and it still will put a lack of trust in the bank of Master Wei Lun.
Yeah, I can see it playing either way, like,
right,
and it would work, and that's so beautiful. Like, I love that you're able to write this story and you keep me off balance, that it could go either way and it would work, and I don't feel like it's a formula. Just okay, now this is gonna happen. Okay, now I've seen this is gonna like we don't know. We just don't know.
We don't know, and you're right. The approach that they're taking on it is a very well utilized one. Jumping over to the scene on the other side of the fight, we have Master Chao Feng over here, looking up at Master Shaw at the location of the Temple of the Flaming Fist. Kind of speaking to it, we hear that Master Shaw could come out of the stone and defend the Temple of the Flaming Fist should that time arise, should a situation serious enough constitute that. And he is here, Chao Feng is here speaking to him, letting him know, I've been a faithful student. This could be the time. This is the time. Be here with us. We will get the victory, and it would be nice if you could share the glory with us. He's interrupted. One of the monks on the island lets him know that, hey, the opposition is approaching. He swings his axe over his shoulder and says it is time. The rest of his students begin to crowd around. He calls them all to the front line. And sure enough, we see the blimps off in the distance approaching, full of Owen and the rest of the Scorched Earth clan. Seems like everybody is in place at the Temple of the Flaming Fist. Chao Feng calls them all fools, and they begin their fire dart assault on the blimps. We've also got some essentially catapults throwing inflamed, looks like wooden spheres at the oncoming blimps as well. We get a nice big old splash page of the damage that the flaming fists were able to do to the blimps. The Scorched Earth clan, they are taking damage. Some inside have arrows that have pierced them through. It is on fire. It seems like the blimps are going down, and Owen is calling for everybody to get out because indeed they are earthbound and not in a gentle way. And that is where the book ends.
Yeah, this ending took me a little bit by surprise. It felt very abrupt. And this comic was a very fast read. And I say that even, I force myself to sort of pace. It can be tough because our instinct is to want, once you kind of get into a story, especially if a story is very engaging, your instinct oftentimes is just your eyes to dart from word bubble to word bubble. And you can do that and you can process the story. I've done that many times, but when it's a really good story, if you learn to discipline yourself and pace the story through the paneling and not the words, take more time to look at bigger panels, less time to look at smaller panels, you'll find, we've talked about this many times, you'll find that there's sort of a beat, just like in music, a rhythm that you can go to, and a writer that knows what they're doing, like Kirkman, it really will enhance it. I really do try to focus, and I still felt like this story went by quick. And I think it had less to do with the actual time and more about my perception of time because I just enjoy this book so much. But also the ending was like, wait, that's it? Dang it. And I always kind of see what you were saying about how I haven't seen episode 5 of the Bucky and Falky show, but I can understand kind of what you mean of how it's all set up. Like the finale is still kind of coming, and this is, the charge, before the big battle. And we're going to see where this goes. There's not really much to say on this. This is like this last scene with Chow Fang is really just that. It's just there to be like, here it comes, and cliffhanger. So we can expect the next issue is going to be just tons of big battles and things going on, I expect. I don't know. I also expect issue 11 to be a little bit more of this, simply because they've advertised that issue 12 is like a double-sized issue because of apparently it's probably going to be the big finale. Not of the whole series, but whatever this arc is. And so I expect that we will not see any resolution to a battle on the next issue. I think it'll be more build up, and then issue 12 will be the big, crescendo. But I'm fully enjoying this. I think what I'm going to do is after issue 11 comes out, before issue 12 comes out, I'm going to start from the beginning again and read the whole thing. Because I know I'm losing some of the details just because my memory gets foggy. And also sometimes things don't play out the same way when you don't have the knowledge of what the future is. So when you go back to previous scenes, knowing where they're going, you catch things that you didn't know the first time. So I think that's going to happen as well. I'm very curious to see. But this is such a fun book to read. I love this book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fulfilling for me. I feel like I needed a comic like this. It serves a very specific purpose for me. So many books I feel like that I read are kind of more in the middle or more on the higher tier where they do require more time. They, as far as just reading through the pages or, seeing if I like them enough to continue reading them, or I get, I just jump into older trades that I'm not sure that I will like. So I have to read more to find out if I am going, to like it, or older books that just were more wordy because they gave you more back in the day because we didn't have as many things clamoring for our attention. So for them to come in here and have a simple yet interesting story, they make it a little more intricate than a simple story usually is. They have masterful visual storytelling, fantastic colors, clean lines, fantastic writer that knows when to, be a lead foot and hit the accelerator, and when to kind of tap on it a little bit to just rev up a little bit, and when to completely take his foot off and let the momentum of the story and inertia and gravity, if he's going down a hill, carry us all down there. Like, they're not always long. I never feel like I'm cheated though, because I know what I'm getting and I know what to expect when I read these stories. And I never feel like I get ripped off. I don't need a book to take up all my time. I feel like with Firepower, they respect my time. It's mystical martial arts story with relatable characters and a family element from all three angles, whether it's the Scorched Earth clan, the Temple of the Flaming Fist, or Owen himself with his family unit that he's brought in his whole world. Worlds are colliding, over a fairly simple premise, and it fits exactly what I want it to be, and kind of what I need in my comic book reading perfectly. I don't have to think too hard about it, but I do get to use my brain. I get to use a lot of my heart and feel for these characters, and my eyes are filled with lovely visuals. It checks all the boxes for me. I'm so happy that they made a book like this. I have an appreciation for exactly what it is.
Well, you just said that so beautifully. I don't think there's anything I can add to that. Well said, my friend. I'm just glad that you have those feelings for this book, because they echo my own, and now I get to share it with you. And I hope you guys that are listening to the show, you're devoting your eyeballs to us. So that means you must have some enjoyment as well. Thank you for being here. We love having you here every 2 weeks to talk about this book. And I hope this book goes on for many, many, many more issues. Kirkman has written 2 ongoing series that have made over 100 issues, which is crazy to think that Robert Kirkman by himself has written 2 of his own series and taken them both over 140 issues. And the big 2 can't do that with mega franchises that have been around for 80 years. It's crazy. So I hope that he's not done doing that. Not every book that he does that. Sometimes he does 30 or 40 issues. But we'll see where this goes. I don't see a big ending in sight, and I love collecting comics for the long term. I love being here for the long ride, and I like not knowing that there's going to be an ending. That's another reason I love ongoing series. I know eventually it's gonna, but I don't like counting down to the days, right? I don't like going, oh, it's a 12-issue series. Oh, we're on issue 11. Like, it's gonna react. Like, I kind of like just knowing that it's just going. I don't have to think about, oh, what the last issue is. Just keep going and going. This is great. This is what comics are about to me. Sitting here talking with other fans and, sharing that enthusiasm about these books. So, Zach says, I'm not giving you my eyeballs, Ash. How else would I be able to read Firepower? Well said. And FF2 says that he's trying to find more indie books to read. He's still discovering more series and writers. And I know you addressed him in the chat, but I think that's worth just kind of a quick vocal discussion.
Definitely.
Talk amongst each other. I mean, you got me and Skip, who spend hours of our time every 2 weeks to put this together to push on you. Kirkman's not paying us. We're not getting a check. We do this because we love the book, and we're like, here, feel some of this enthusiasm. Hopefully you like it too. But you can do the same. I mean, you don't have to do a YouTube show, but I mean, just your friends say, tell them what you honestly love and why you love it. And if they're your friends, you kind of know what their tastes are. So you can kind of tailor your recommendations, be like, I think this might be up your alley. When you're in the chat, you see regulars, you yourself are a regular, talk amongst yourselves, not just listen to us. I mean, everyone has different tastes, and even the best books sometimes aren't going to rub you the right way, and that's totally fine. But throwing those recommendations out, enthusiasm is infectious. And I think when people are really genuinely excited about something, not just shilling for something, this is why comic media fails, in my opinion. We're not going to go into that, but when people are genuinely enthusiastic, they're like, I just love this book. I'm so excited to give it my money every month. Other people are like, man, I want to, because people want to have fun. People want to love their books. That's why they go to the store. That's why you guys pay your money for your books, because you want to crack that book open and you want it to blow you away. You're not there to just be like, I hope it's entertained, like, I hope it just doesn't suck. Like, that's not what it should be. You should want to just be absolutely enthused. So surrounding yourself with that enthusiasm, I think, really helps. So yeah, thanks for being here and sharing that with us. I think it's time now to get on to the other feature that we have. Would you not agree, my friend?
I would agree wholeheartedly. East of West, Volume 8. Thanks everybody who's been taking this journey with us through East of West. Hopefully y'all have been able to read along with us. If you haven't, hopefully by the end of this, if you have been following along with us and you like the way that it concludes, you do eventually go back, get the books for yourself, whether it's collecting the singles, trade paperbacks, digital, analog, whatever it is. This is a fantastic story with a lot of heart weaved into it, and a big old plot as well. Tons of different characters that come along, and not all of them last the whole entire ride. And that's part of the fun of the ride. Fantastic art, immaculate colors by Frank Martin Jr. for any of y'all who have been reading Venom with Donny Cates, Nick Dragata on the lines, and Jonathan Hickman in one of his best forms. And on the back end, that I don't get to talk about a lot, but I talk about here and there, I'm learning more and more why this story ended up being crafted the way that it was. Nick Dragata and Jonathan Hickman crafting this tale together, and it's satisfying. This is my personal 6th time reading through it, I believe, and every time I got something new out of it. Even rediscovering things about it is fulfilling enough. Going through it this time with Ash has been special in the sense that I didn't know how he was going to take to this story. He has his own different history with Jonathan Hickman's stories. So for him to have genuinely, come to the place where, and the feelings that he has for the story, and him really, really enjoying it, has been special for me, and for y'all to join us on this journey as well. I really appreciate it. So I know that that part wasn't necessarily called for, but this is my favorite comic book of all time. So please indulge me in my mushiness, but it's a joy for me. And like I said, on the personal back end of things, some things are changing for me. Some things are shifting around, very much related to this story. So I didn't know that things were going to change like this. And maybe later, probably when we're done with it, I'll say I will reveal what it is. But it's my life as a whole is interesting, the way that I end up engaging with the things that I'm interested in, and for this to have been my favorite story, and then have some things in life occur related to this story, and then have them take a turn and are changing and shifting now, like on this day, in this very second, it makes it a little more special to me than it was, at a few hours ago before we even started. So issue 39 is the first issue in volume 8. We have one more volume to go after this done. We have volume 9, and the story will conclude. Ash, you ready to go?
Real quick correction. This is volume 9.
That's right. Volume 10.
And volume 10 will be the last.
Correcting me. Volume 10 will be the last. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, so this is the penultimate volume. On the next episode that we feature East of West, we will be doing The Landing, which I don't think I'm going to wait. Just a little. Normally I wait. Every 2 weeks we do this book, right? unless there's a break. And I usually read it close to showtime, so it's fresh in my head, and we're discussing it. So and then we 2 weeks will go by, and then I'll read the next volume close to showtime again. I don't think I'm going to be waiting 2 weeks after this. I think I'm going to be reading this maybe after we finish wrapping the show tonight. I don't know.
And I know exactly, because I've read it, I know exactly why you feel that way, especially where it ended, and you guys will find out shortly. And we won't make you wait any longer. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. In issue 39, we go back to then. And then is a time before where all of the chosen were still above dirt. We see that we are in Armistice, and we have other balloons similar to balloon that goes along with Babylon, and they're reading through the message, almost scanning through it for text. Ezra is speaking to the sister of Zhao Lin, who had come as emissary for their father, who was the Mao at that time, but obviously he is now passed away as well. We have a lot of the other people in there. We got Cheveo, we got Prince John, and they're all speaking through themselves. Some of them not so welcoming, because it should be the actual chosen that are there present, and she is not one of the chosen. She is representing one of the chosen. They don't feel like her information that she has is fit to have a constructive conversation with the rest of them. And sure enough, Worst Company comes in. We got Archibald and Belle Solomon. They enter the conversation as well. She's basically stating that it's subjective what all of this stuff represents, and in comes Solomon after the fact, after being a little goaded by Archibald, and he's kind of putting his spin on it. He doesn't want this stuff to mean anything, so he says, as far as he's concerned, it's all paper, and this message that is supposed to be so important is not a living document, so to speak. After all, we come to the here and now. We are with Wolf and Crow. Wolf is just talking about how consuming with Ezra consuming the message and becoming the message, and then him consuming Ezra in his wolf form, he feels the message moving inside of him, and he's being compelled even more so to kind of get to the point, so to speak, of where things in the message will really kind of come to a head. Crow is trying to console him a little bit, and he's just saying, thank you, I appreciate your company, and trying to do so, but serious matters are basically at hand. She tells him, look up, and as they have company, they're getting some message from another balloon that they've got incoming. And when Wolf looks out through the balloon to use its kind of binocular feature, he sees that the House of Mao is marching and is at their door. They're waving the war flags, and it looks like conflict is imminent. And so Wolf says, let's go down there and meet her and see what the Bride of Death wants. We get over to the Three Horsemen. They're walking about the lands and come upon one of the assassins that was sent out to hunt after Babylon. This one's name was named after a psalm, and they pick it up and they see that it actually can come back online. It has not completely been taken out as they thought. They go to put it back online, and then we jump over to another scene. We've got Archibald watching things unfold with Wolf and Zhao Lin, and he's just stating how he's better than his foes. All of his enemies are fools, and he's going to be the spark that jumps into the pool of gasoline and lights this thing on fire, and ultimately comes and ends it all. Then we do jump one more time, and we have Babylon and Death, father and son, riding along. Babylon's getting ready to tell his dad a joke, And right before he does, he looks up in the sky and says, "Hey, that's a bird." His dad recognizes and says, "No, it's not." Sure enough, it's a Psalm. Death engages him, puts him down, but then looks up and finds that there's a whole fleet, a whole flock of those Psalm predators in the sky. So he sends Babylon on. Babylon is getting ridden away to safety by the little hog, little pig that they had, which is pretty funny. And Death is just putting down those Psalm things left and right, but they do gang up on him. I'll get the jump on him while Babylon is away. Balloon is giving him some more information. And sure enough, right when we think that Babylon is far enough away from the war, we see that the three horsemen it just had created a diversion, and now they have Babylon right where they want him. And that's where that issue ends. Ash?
Wow, this first book starts off with a bang. There's not necessarily a ton of depth going on in this particular I guess I don't know, the flashback was pretty revealing. Now my notes, one of my notes I have says something, who died? There was something, and I'm trying to catch where in the dialogue about someone being dead. And I don't know, I had basically my note saying, ask the question, who died? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Let me take a look. I'm going back over to that page right now. Chosen, take place, clever girl. Do you remember who specifically it was that had mentioned it?
No, I just wrote who died because they mentioned like someone's dead, or, and I can't remember. I was basically, who are they referring to? I didn't understand, and of course now I figured it would. This is why you write notes, but you don't want to write too detailed notes.
Right.
And then, oh darn it.
Well, as you give your thoughts, I'll continue to look at this one particular scene, and I can see if I can shed some light on that.
Well, yeah, there was in the flashback. What made me think about it was like, so you see these characters, and they're engaging about the end of the world, but like years ago, not like now. Like, and you're like, wait a second, this has happened before. They've been on this journey to the apocalypse, and then they didn't get there, and I guess it was postponed. Something failed. I don't know, and I think that's very interesting because here they are, kind of again, I guess, picking up where they left off, and there's some mention of that. It's a little bit ambiguous, which is what Hickman's been doing this whole ride. But I thought it was very interesting, and it makes me kind of just go, okay, I feel like this is important. We're gonna see this play out. I love Wolf and Crow. They're two of my favorite characters, and so any scenes with them I really like. Another thing I noticed is Nick Dragotta's art has really improved. Like, being able to read it through the series in this fashion, this took place over years, but we were kind of reading it, at hyper speed. Being in volume 9, these issues written years after his initial run, I can just absolutely see his artistic, his illustration skills getting so much better. So that of course is great. I love the dialogue between Death and his son. It's so twisted, like Death and the Beast. Like, these are characters, like, on the surface you're like, these are just evil beings, like, why would you care? But they're so humanized that we have empathy for them, or we have, compassion. We relate to them because of that. And that's all due to storytelling. I love the whole song. I always thought the Psalm was such a great character design, and I was so disappointed when they didn't get to be utilized very much because it got killed pretty quick in its initial reveal. And then here you get to see that saw him on steroids. Like there's like a whole swarm of them, and it actually made you go, oh shit, like Death's in trouble. And it's just a great spectacle. I I love everything about this issue. It comes up right to the end, and we get the oh shit moment because this has been building. Babylon meeting the Horsemen. They have plans for him, and we don't get to see where this goes because this is a big cliffhanger. So, other than that question about the death, that's all I really have to say about this issue.
To that, I found the part. It was Belle Solomon, which I really like how they always. Belle Solomon is not someone who had a bunch of lines. He wasn't one of the. He's one of the kind of main characters, but at the same time, he's kind of middling. He's not always that, but for some reason, it seems like he's important. And I think one of the main reasons why Bell is important is because he is that skeptic. He is that doubter that had come from having a very reputable past. He's very much like a law of the land kind of guy, more than something beyond us that gives us the moral stake. And I think this scene kind of highlights it even more. I'll explain why. So it says, this is Belle Solomon. Well, I admit that that's all good and goddamn fascinating, but you're all forgetting one thing. The message is just a guide, but what we actually served was a higher purpose. The reason we haven't met, talked, or acted on it for 10 years is because that higher power is dead, and it happened right in front of us. We all watched. So I don't want to hear about the end times, and I don't want to hear about the word. As far as I'm concerned, it's just paper, and that's all it'll ever be. There's nothing living in it. And it's funny that he ended on there's nothing living in it. That higher power that he's talking about is death. Death was the leader of the horsemen. They never saw the face of God through this, in this book. The apocalypse had began, and what they were introduced to, the most forceful thing, the most powerful thing that they met was the three horsemen and the four horsemen. And the leader of the four horsemen was death. And as we know, just from the beginning, because this is how the book starts, the four horsemen, they all died. Three of them, well, keep what I'm saying in mind. Three of them got reborn in children's bodies, and then when we met the other one, death was white and he was alone, but they were kids and he was an adult. And it's funny that death is the one that he's talking about, the higher power, and that higher power is dead. And then he goes back to what they got left with in this new message, and he's saying there's nothing living in this document. Okay. So that's what he was talking about. Okay. He's talking about the horsemen.
We'll keep that in mind because there's some related stuff that we'll get to you'll be able to expand on when we get to that.
Absolutely. So from that we go over to book number 40, issue number 40, I should say. And here we are. We are right back in that scene with Death being overrun by all the different the different versions of Psalm, those like bird-like assassins, and he's just gunning through them in the most gritty, badass way. It's just like, you want to talk about a shootout, this is what you're getting. And he's being attacked and just shooting through all of them. On the flip side, we cut back over to Babylon. Babylon, of course, has the other three horsemen amongst them. Balloon says something he doesn't like, and one of the horsemen shoots at him. They continue to have the discussion. They're basically trying to kind of, re-recruit Babylon in a way, seeing if they don't have to take them by force. And Babylon kind of wants to teach them a lesson. So as they continue to talk, as Death is having more of that scene back there, he's taking blows and giving them, and ultimately gets stabbed, but he gets the upper hand, kind of gets an opening. He's running through past all the machines, and eventually he's able to get back to his horse, and his horse is a cannon. And anytime he uses his little horse cannon thing, it's always a sight. He mows through a bunch of those things as he got them all lined up because they were all gunning straight for him. So as he got away, they were in a line. Cannon goes off, gets rid of all of them. We cut to another scene, and we do have Mao or Zhao Lin with Wolf and Crow. There, she's kind of laying out, her intentions and where she's at. Wolf is discussing where he's at now with the message and what he now represents. And as they continue to talk about it, he kind of makes her an offer, and Mao says that she'll think it over. Death is we cut back over to Death, Zhao Lin / Mao's husband. He is kind of looking at the rubble and what's left, the parts and the battered psalms that are left over. Death talking and saying death things, shoots one of those psalm things right in the face, and off in the distance he gets a slow clap from one of the horsemen over there, and they greet him and say, "Hello, Death. It's been a while." So we leave off on that cliffhanger. We jump back over to Wolf and Crow and Mao. Wolf and Crow are riding off on one of their horse mech, and Mao is being questioned by one of the Widowmakers about some of the things that was overheard, and she lets him know that she knows what she said, but she's keeping her plans close to the vest. And kind of does state like, hey, we're gonna hold the line for a second and see if we can give some room for some of this stuff to play out, but best believe we still are on the march. And Death is sitting there having we jump back over to Death. They're having the conversation, kind of having it out. He's asking where his son is. They're talking about the great beast and how, this is what Babylon is supposed to be versus what Death wants him to be, which is just his son, just a kid. And, he's basically letting Death know, like, hey, this is what it's going to be. We don't care about your plans. There's already things set in motion. You deviated from the plan, and we're here about to set things back right. And ultimately, they end on like, hey, we got your son. You can come, you can come after us. But this is where you can meet us here, basically at sunset, in so many words. And we'll be waiting for you. And that is where that episode ends, son. Ash. I'm talking about the son. Yeah. Ash, I'll let you embellish.
Gosh, this issue was really fun. It was finally exciting to see two titans, coming together, War and Death. This has been a build-up since the beginning of the series, and they had been walking separate paths, and you just knew it was inevitable. And now here we are on issue 40, and they're finally coming together. And, one of the aspects that Hickman and Dragotta decided to do when they came up with this book is to set it in a Western and do that style. And I think it's important for those of you who are a fan of Westerns. It's important to talk about, rather, because, Westerns have certain tropes and certain things about them that I think, Western fans really like. And one of those things is sort of like the showdown. The man with the white hat, the man with the black hat, they're eventually going to cross paths. They're eventually going to have, their reckoning. And here you just see the two, probably the most badasses of badasses on the planet, War and Death. And the way that this is set up, and it's just like just sitting in a field talking to each other, describing it, you just can't do justice. But how Hickman sets the emotion, sets the scene right from this slow clap scene here, where War comes in out of the shadows. I cannot lie, I always did love to watch you work. Hello, Death. It's been a while. You know, and when I read this book, I read it in that like tropey Western voice in my head, you know. It just adds to the flavor. And this discussion, you know, he's like, you know, what a day. Do you mind if I sit? I'm going to sit. Chase has left me bone weary, and I don't think the conversation we're getting ready to have is going to be a short one. It might not be a conversation at all. Have you hurt my boy? Now, why would I do that? After all, your son is the great beast of the apocalypse, the one we've been supposedly waiting for. You're going to pretend like you and the others haven't tried to kill him once already, and that you would serve anyone but yourself? Well, Death, what can I say? I was wrong. And I could just go on and on. Obviously, you can read the book. I just wanted to give you a taste of this juicy dialogue describing what's happening in the book and the plots and things. It's all well and good. But the atmosphere that you feel surrounded with Dragota's art here, you know, here we get to see the massacre of all these Psalm robot things that, you know, it just, and they're just facing each other down, and that tension is just building and building, which is kind of what makes the whole shootout thing, which is really kind of a fictional trope. Historians say that really didn't happen, but it makes for a great thing, that standoff. And you're like, who's going to draw? You know, what's going to happen? It just goes between you and me. Where he says, that's between you and me. My son doesn't have anything to do with it. The fuck he doesn't. What do you want? For you to die, and die poorly at my hand. And look, if you've watched the movie Tombstone, you just know what I'm talking about. That take that example of Wyatt Earp when he's talking to oh God. Now I'm not Wyatt Earp. Doc Holliday when he's talking to help me out, Skip. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're talking about, I can't remember the name.
Basically the big gun shooter that's on the bad guy gang. I'm drawing a blank on his name. And they're just calling each other out. You know, I'm your Huckleberry. It has that juicy sort of like, and you know, you could just hear the you know, like the music from, you know, any Sergio Leone movie playing at the background. Yeah. And so I just highly recommend when you read this book, you die. That's why I said that's important, at least to me. That mood and flavor are part of what makes this book. Not all of what makes a book. So much more. But that's one of the things that stood out to me. And you know, for the sake of brevity and time, we'll let go. We got 2 more issues to cover. But I just love this last, you know, the scene. Good. I'll be waiting for you. And you're just like, oh, it's still building. The fires is still building.
Easily one of my favorite parts of the whole entire book. Some of Hickman's best dialogue is in this book. And like Ash said, I really can't do these recaps justice, because when I talk about, it's not all, you know, in this society that we live in where things are 0 and 10, and, you know, rarely do we get things in the middle. Like, and everybody wants the plot twist. You know, tell me what the twist is. Tell me who's the mystery person. Tell me this, tell me that. Like, no, this is that good story where it has those things in there, but it's the ride that you appreciate. You don't want to miss one of these dialogue bubbles. It is dripping.
It is
with the inspiration that we hope every comic book writer on every comic book that we spend our hard-earned money for is putting into the book.
Yes, if this were a movie, it would be one of those movies that's like so quotable, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just, there's so many bits of, and it's just issue after issue. You're like, Jesus, Hickman, like, how come you don't write like this all the time? Like,
right.
This is 45 issues of stuff. And so it's not like you were just a one and done, like, oh, you had a lightning struck and wow, I don't know. I'm so loved. Keep going. I'm gonna go in the weeds if I talk any longer.
You're all good. Well, we might have to have like a east of west like come down, decompress.
Really?
Like episode after we go through volume 10, because there's just so much in here.
Yeah. You know what might be fun real quick, and
Yeah.
I'll just throw the suggestion out there and we can talk more behind the scenes, but maybe just sort of having like a hangout panel full with me, you, we can invite some other guests that are also like Jimmy's just in the channel, anyone who's a big fan of this series and wants to say more, and like we can all talk about our favorite moments and reminisce about the whole series when it's over.
Totally. No, but great idea. We'll definitely talk more about it behind the scenes, but I love that idea, and it feels like it's completely warranted.
Yeah.
On that note, East of West, issue 41, we are taken back in time again, another flashback. We get Cheveo with a young wolf, a different vizier to King John Freeman over in the Kingdom of New Orleans, and young Prince John Freeman. Cheveo and them are, exchanging pleasantries. But what we really get out of the scene is we see that there's two young princes, so to speak, two young heirs, might be more accurate. And while they have all of this, political things going on above their head and people wanting to shape them into what their kingdoms will be calling them to be, these are just two young boys like playing like hide and seek and winking at each other and showing each other tricks, and Wolf goes from being in his boy form to being in a little puppy wolf form, and and Prince John Freeman, like young Prince John Freeman, he's just laughing at that, and they go off and they're running after each other, like just all this stuff is happening amongst their heads, and these people are having very serious conversations about what they need to mold them into, and they are just young clay, just rolling along in the fun of life. So one of my favorite scenes in all of the book, though it was very short. Now we still have another flashback, a little bit of surprise. Why would young John Freeman be in the book? Well, that's because when the Texas Ranger Thomas took the shot a few issues ago in the previous volume, it was not our older John Freeman that was hit, but one of the other John Freeman brothers that was in the room that had gotten taken out. The vizier, the current vizier, had actually gone against the king's order, so to speak, and is now helping Prince John Freeman get out of there, set him up with some money, had a plane, and actually it was his father all along that had not sold him out, but bought him out of that situation and pretty much released him to go and follow his passions and see things through, and allow the vizier to go along with him. So little turn of the tide, little wink and a nod. John Freeman is not marked off the board, and he is out and about to carry on his the business of the message. Eventually they have a scene, he and the vizier, about basically the love and then her having to drop him off, and then she's got to go her way, and he's got to finish up his part of the deal. From there, we go over to the Black Towers. We've got Archibald still laying with his his niece that is in a in a serious medical condition, a serious state of health. Seems that she's still in a coma, and he's talking, and pretty much he tries to make a deal with God, saying, hey, look, if I got to give something up, I will give up. You keep the girl and just allow me to win and take this victory. And he wraps up his prayer, says amen, which means so be it. And as he sparks up his cigar and kind of walks over towards the window, we see that she opens one eyelid and I guess really says under her breath or in her mind, shit. She knows something else is going on. We go over to Wolf, another scene of him meditating amongst some mountains, and John Freeman approaches. He lets him know he could smell him a mile away, kind of going back to their old friendship. He's just catching up and saying, "Hey, you here to help me finish out the message?" And John Freeman is like, "Of course." Um, and they are moving about, and they get a better vantage. And Wolf has John look down, and they see that Mao has set up camp. She is ready to carry out war. Wolf is letting me know I asked her to buy me some time so I could weigh out my options. And John Freeman was like, "Well, hey, like we don't have to necessarily engage. We could just watch from right here." We cut to another scene. Archibald, making a move inside of a one of his limousine-like vehicles. They're on a bridge, and he's talking to Belle and continuing to talk about, how Belle should be happy that he's let him, live this long. And they go back a long ways. And the ghost of Cheveo inside of Belle's mind is, basically still just bloodthirsty, and he wants the message to be taken to be carried out. But more than that, he wants vengeance. And finally, Archibald gets Belle to start talking, and Belle starts giving him a piece of his mind on how he feels about Archibald, who he truly is, versus the image that he puts off. And Archibald is just like, yeah, miss me with all that. History is written by the winners. And as he's saying that, there's a big old panel of Archibald's army being unloaded, ready to face Zhao Lin, aka Mao, aka the wife of Death's army and squadron. And that's where we leave off, knowing that the battle is that much closer to sparking off.
This was a great book. I love this issue a lot. A lot to unpack. The big thing is it's funny, right before you started this book, you were talking about twists in the plot and things like that. And then of course that's what this issue was. A bunch of big twists. And it starts off with the flashback. Well, sorry, not really the flashback. The flashback was a tease of that, but right after the flashback with the vizier, this is the scene playing out again, right? We've seen this scene before. This was a few issues back, well, several issues back, where the Texas Ranger was hired by the king to kill his son, and the vizier, we thought, had put John Freeman, and the way the scene, I love it when you can play a scene out, and under certain context, your interpretation is one way, and then as soon as you change the context, the scene plays out exactly the same, but now you see it differently. And I'm just like, that's brilliant. I love how Hickman does that, because he doesn't change what happens here so much. He just changes how you see it. And it's the same thing exact happens. She's like, for the record, I would never shoot you either, right? That whole scene happens. Only this time we understand when she says, don't move, it's not so that he's lined up for the ranger to shoot him. It's so that he doesn't come into the line of fire, because the ranger's going to shoot his brother. And he trusts her so much that even though his brother's about to get killed, he's like, I don't know what the hell's going on, but I'll not move. And he lets his brother die, and he's just like, what the hell's going on? And she's like, I'll explain later. And that signifies the strength of their relationship. And I love that so much that you don't need to tell me that the relationship's strong. You showed me, right? We hear about writing all the time, show, don't tell.
Yep.
Hickman shows you here. He doesn't have to tell you that their relationship's strong. You witness it. You understand. But the twist is not over, right? Because right after that happens, the king, they're getting on the plane to get away, and the king walks up. And you're like, oh, shit, they're about to be caught. The king's, and he's addressing the vizier. And again, it's the contextual thing. Under the context of, oh, shit, the king just fucking walked up on us. I'm going to talk him down. And he says this thing like, oh, you're doing what you're doing. And she's explaining, let's see here. And John's listening, and he's overhearing his dad says, still, I'll miss the boy. He would one day made a formidable king. And while I don't believe in miracles, if by one he was to appear someday healthy and whole, right? This is that suggestion of like, You know, it could you could have been somehow keeping him alive. You know, I do believe, in spite of hard words that he had for me last time we spoke, I would embrace him and welcome him home to reclaim his rightful seat. If only, my king, she says and bows. Yes, if only. Well, I have much ugly work to do this evening, but you take the night and mourn. However, there's one thing I want you to remember. Viziers clean up messes. They do not make them. I understand, your majesty. And once you see the scene, and he's like, good girl. And as you see the scene play out, and then it comes to this next part where they have to say their goodbyes, because she's got to go back, and you realize that she's still serving the king. You realize that he wasn't about to discover her betrayal. He knew she was going to do that all along. He knew her loyalty and that she would preserve John, right? And you're just like, good Lord, this is the plots within plots. And so, you know, they end up with a kiss. And she's like, I serve the king. This is who I am. I can't stop being who I am. But that final line, there's a final line where she says, and who knows, maybe your father's right. One day a miracle might bring you back. And I was like, damn, that's like the whole issue for me was that scene, like the combination of those scenes. But yet there's more. We get to see Archibald praying to God. I won't read the prayer. It's a long one, but I just love this scene. Reminded me of Conan the Barbarian. And when Conan's praying to his god Crom, and it's a similar type of thing. It's like the prayer of the non-believer. And at the end of the prayer, Conan's like, and if you do not listen, then to hell with you. You know, it's like,
right.
You know, and it's almost like Archibald's like, yeah, you know, just give me all this stuff. And yeah, you can have the girl. You're just like, what? And it's so befitting of like a treacherous person like Archibald to pray to God, and like his barter with God is such an anti like God, like it's something that God's not really wanting. Like he's not asking you to sacrifice people, but that's Archibald's life. Like that's like, yeah, you can have her. Like, no, dude. But it's just befitting of his character. But I also like how the girl's listening, you see in the scene, and she opens her eye for a second. She's like, shit. Because she overheard that and realizes that he's not 100% loyal. He'll sell you out. Don't, you know? And then there's the whole Mao army thing you talked about. Real quick, just the bridge. I just love Nick Dragotta getting to flash his concept designs. I always talk about how this, if I could see anything, any comic adapted into a TV show, I would do this. If I had Game of Thrones money, and I could get that production's values, or even like Westworld. Yeah, that's what I would love the production staff of Westworld to adapt this. But just, I love how this thing flies. I geek out about world building stuff like this. I like how Bell is sort of the most non-believer of all the chosen, but yet he's also the one that's kind of, well, he's not kind of, he is possessed. What's his name? I'm so bad with the name.
Oh, Cheveo.
You know, and he's so, you know, of course, Cheveo. And so it's like a yin yang sort of thing. And I like how what he says is true. Like he calls out Archibald for being a coward and all this stuff. And Archibald's like, yeah, you know, you're right. Doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter that you're right, because history is written by the winner, and no one's going to care that I was a coward, because history is going to write, you know, remember me as the Titan. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting way to spit it right back in someone's face. Like, yeah, you're right. I might be a coward, but it doesn't matter. I'm going to win. You're just like, damn, this baller. And this is another shout out Nick Dragotta moment. Look at that design. It makes me just awe. Like, I just want to see this on a big screen. But let's carry on with the next episode or issue.
Indeed, yeah, it does feel episodic. Oh gosh, it would We'll talk more about that later as well, the whole episode thing. I'll come back around to it. I promise I won't forget something that literally is at the start. Like when you go read the solicit, is at the beginning of what they talk about with volume 9. But the last one, issue 42, last one for this volume, we pick up where Death and War, because I always get them mixed up. Is the red one War, Ash?
Red one is War.
Okay, thank you. I always get the
and this particular issue is going to be a very revealing thing about War.
Yes, it is. And I like how it was laid out, but we'll get there. We're not far. So it picks up where they left off. They decided they're gonna meet in the Valley of the Gods. There's a toll to be paid, and Death says he surely will pay it. Now we go straight from there to a flashback, like even further back, where we get almost all of the original Chosen again, except Zhao father, that Mao, and I forget his actual name, but he's the Mao of the PRA. We get all of the rest of them, including the very first one of the Chosen that got taken out in issue number 1, the President of the United States. And then from there, they are all up on a rock looking down on a battle. And who we have below is Death, but Death is all black. Death is not white. And we have the other 3 of the horsemen who I believe, of course, we know War. I believe it's Conquest and is it Famine?
Yes, Famine.
Right. So they have War has a bloody bag, a bloody sack. They are Death is asking, "Where's my wife?" They're saying that she shifted off this mortal coil. She's dead. Here's some proof. Throws the bloody bag. And now we see an additional way or another perspective of how Zhao Lin no longer had her arms. We had seen it before, but now we see Death figuring that out. The arms are thrown, and she does have the tattoos. It flashes back to them in the bathtub in a very intimate scene, and she has those tattoos as Death is running his hands through her hands. He back into the battle. He takes one of her arms, rubs it against his face, as if to simulate her, lovingly touching his face, his cheek. And from there, he's like, "All right, now it's on, like Donkey Kong. I'm gonna finish y'all, and it won't be quick, and it will be painful." They jump into battle, and Death, as skilled as we know that he is with a gun, of course, he brings a knife to this fight, and they handle things the old way. He lunges right at who I believe is Famine. Hack slash. That guy has been cut in half, and the better half of him, if you want to call it that, is separated from him on the floor while his legs are still standing. Bell grabs a gun from one of the one of Bell's gunmen, one of his rangers. I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me go back. That's actually the tracker. It snatches the gun from the tracker. The president's like, "Don't waste a bullet." They can only Cheveo reveals that they can only be killed by their own kind, like by their own weapon. Of course, Bell still wants to take a shot, and he hits Death in the arm with the slug. Death is had backhanded War and knocked War's hat off. We've got the other one, Conquest. Conquest has some whips. Kind of got Death caught up and in a tight spot. Death still has the blade available, and that hand is free. Hack slash. He has subtracted some of Conquest's limbs, but from that, kind of similar to what we saw with Ezra, and that beast, limbs fly out of those open wounds and even burst through Conquest's chest, and now Death has to deal with that beast. After being tangled up, Death throws the blade straight through the mouth of the beast. Bam, takes out the beast, as well as finally finishing off Conquest. Ezra, having a fetish for these hellish pets, or an affinity, I should say, for them, yells no, because he obviously is saddened by that. From War comes new powers that we did not know from before this issue. Some missiles kind of almost launch out of her limbs, almost like her limbs were silos. bombards Death a little bit, but the rest of the ones that are in the air, Death grabs out his trusty pistol, knocks a few of them out of the air, and after he shoots the rest, it was enough of distraction for War to roll up on Death, slice his weapon in half, and run him right through and impale him through the chest with a flaming sword. I do like the whole flaming sword touch as a biblical reference. Well, Ash will talk about that one. And then this is where we get the reveal that Ash was talking about. It seems like there was a little bit more to War and Death's relationship than we had known before. And War is basically saying, hey, we had all this stuff, this universe expanded into nothing, but instead you chose to love her. Like, basically, we could have had all of this, but instead you choose to love her. Why? While she is in her emotional state and asking these questions, from Death's gun, he sees one of his flaming bullets. He grabs it in his hand, and Death said, you act like I had a choice. Puts up his hand, snaps, and the head of the bullet comes out of the shell, and bam, right through the middle of right through the middle of War's head. War falls to the ground, leaking from the frontal lobe. And Death is still mortally wounded from the other parts of the fight. The Chosen have come down now, seeing that the coast is clear, Death is weakened, and the rest of the horsemen are out of commission. And Bell Solomon, being consistent, is sick of all the crap, and he just wants to end it. So he grabs the weapon from who I believe was Pestilence, the double-edged sword, kicks Death over, says, I would let you go if I could, but I know that, you wouldn't leave well enough alone, and I want all of this stuff to end. And so I'm going to end it. And runs Death right through with that weapon, straight through what would be, I guess, the solar plexus, where I guess if he had a heart, which it seems like he does, he would. We get a Hickman trope of the I swear, read every Hickman book, and it's always in there from the very beginning. All of the Chosen pretty much, give their looks of not contentment, but all right, well, this is kind of where we've come. And Bell turns around and walks away, saying, we're leaving. It's over, thinking that it's over, but it's not. And then we get a little bit of dialogue, and I will read this. This is still War in the present day, talking to Death now that they have Babylon and they've kind of made a place to meet at sundown. I will see you there, Death. I will see you, and you will see me, and we will settle this once and for all. As Death is there, and the blackness of him is expanding into the earth. He goes from still being fairly black to kind of dark grayish, a little grayish. The black is still expanding from him into the earth, a little more light grayish, and then ultimately at the end we see that Death has turned white, and all of the earth around him has turned black. And that's where we end this one. Ash.
Damn.
Yeah. One of my favorites for sure.
Damn.
Yeah.
This, okay. Issue 42 is an issue for the ages. And, by itself in a vacuum, it's a good issue. But as a whole, the sum of the parts sort of thing, this issue is phenomenal. So much to unpack, so much, from starting here again in the scene. I love when scenes are replayed, when a scene was left off and we were like, oh, okay, we thought that was done. And then the story moves on and it comes back and it's like, oh, there was actually more to that scene. And you talked about they're going to meet in the Valley of the Gods.
Yes.
I love that, because what is the Valley of the Gods? Well, presumably this is the Valley of the Gods. And I love this flashback of the original Chosen back in their younger days. Some of them obviously no longer around, like the president. You remember he died and he was replaced by Madame LeFay, was her name?
Madame LeVay, you got
Madame LeVay, yeah. That was way early on. So obviously the Hu Mao, she died way early, right? That's why her sister was able to become a powerful figure. But these characters, this is what it was years ago. And they're watching we saw the opening of this whole series is, you know, there's only 3 horsemen. We kind of know that death is not among them. He died or something happened. We don't know what happened. And we finally are like, oh, this is what happened. And so for that reason alone, it's very compelling. And we get this showdown. Another big reveal is this right here, which I think, if I recall back, the beginning of the book probably did reveal that War was previously a female in form. But it's one of those things that you just forget because it was so long ago and it didn't matter at the time. But now when they start talking about how Death has betrayed War and he's got this vendetta, you're like, why is that? And you're like, oh, and as soon as you see female, you're like, ding, put 2 and 2 together. A lover scorned. Hell hath no fury like a lover scorned. And that's exactly what it turns out to be. And it's perfect. Like sometimes a trope is a trope for a reason. You don't need to always defy expectations. And I can't imagine any better reason why War would want to have it out with Death than this. And it all sets up perfectly. I find it interesting, though, that Bell was like, again, true to his character, strays from the message, doesn't care about the worries. I'm going to do my own thing. And he's the one that kills Death. Find that very interesting. I don't know how much that really matters in the greater scheme, but it's interesting to me. This whole scene, the whole battle, it just all plays out so spectacularly. You covered it really well. I love the snap of the bullet. They do mention, there's one thing you forgot to mention. I think that might become crucial or may not, but they do mention that a horseman can only be killed by another horseman's hand or by a weapon of their creation. And that was why it was useless for Bell to shoot at one, and that's why he was able to stab Death and kill him, because that was Famine's staff that he used.
He shot Death, and Death like pushed the bullet back out of his body.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be important later, maybe, but we'll see. Obviously, Skip knows, and some of you guys in the audience already know. But I just liked this Bell just kicking Death in the face. I have a feeling that's going to come back to haunt him. And this scene right here, I'm so glad that you described it the way that you did, because it changed my perspective of this scene. Here I thought, okay, here's this Death just dying. But my perspective wasn't the blackness leaving him and him turning, it was more about just, okay, he's dying. And I'm like, wait a second. And I know you guys know, some of you guys know the answer. Skip, for sure you do. But as someone who doesn't know the answers, and I'm only read up to this issue, it makes me go, holy shit. Is this kind of why, or part of why things are right now, is that the world has become Death, in a sense? Not that it's become the character Death, but the power of Death, the state that Death represents. I feel like this is symbolic of something. Like there's more to than just Death just lying there. And I hope I'm right. This whole page right here, I will see you there, Death, and I will see you, and you will see me, and we'll settle this once and for all. And I think I have this nagging feeling that this page right here is one of the most important scenes of the whole book, like the whole series. So we'll see if my theory plays out to be true or not. I appreciate no one spoiling things for me. But that is the finale of Volume 9. So we are one book away from wrapping this up. That last volume, number 10, only has 3 issues. I'm assuming one of them is probably a double-sized issue, though.
The last one, 45.
Yeah. So please, guys, if you've made it this far, please join us on the next episode we do it. It's going to be The Landing. I can't wait. This series, I'm so glad you, among others, people like Jimmy, and some others whose names I'm sadly forgetting at the moment, have been in part in recommending this series to me. And, I get lots of things recommended. It's tough sometimes to sift out, and it's easy for other people when you finally get around and be like, it's good, and be like, yeah, I told you so. And it's like, well, yes, if you were the only person ever suggesting books to me, but there's so many of them, and it's like, well, where do you go? And, Jimmy pointed out in the chat, he made a comment, says, you say that like Hickman doesn't write 99% good stuff. I'm not saying he doesn't write 99% good stuff, but from my perspective, the majority of stuff that he's written that I've experienced has been terrible. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I realize that my sample size is small and it's not a good one. And that's why I keep my mind open, and that's why I continue to listen to recommendations of other people. But from that sample size, it's skewed, and it creates a tough one. Plus, we've had long talks about why East of West sort of is not on my radar because of the content. I've talked about many times. I won't go into detail here, but I typically stay away from any sort of biblical reference stuff for reasons. And I just do. And it's very, very, very difficult for stories that are based on biblical things to appeal to me. Again, for reasons. So you're already kind of like going uphill when you're going to sell me a story of this nature. But that's why it's important to keep your mind open about things. And I got to say, I love this book. I mean, I genuinely love this book. So far, I'm going to see how the landing is. But so far, this is among one of the best things I've ever read in comics. Like, it's that good. And I feel like even though we do this show and we spend so much time talking about this this series, that I need to change that too. We talk about this series that I'm not doing it justice. That like I don't know. I feel inadequate in talking about it. I feel like I would need just as much time as I just need to like read it. I feel like I would have to sit down and just read aloud the book and pause and be able to talk about, look at this frame. Let me talk about this particular word bubble. Like I feel like I need to go into that level of detail about the book, which of course would probably bore people to tears. And it's a battle to do. But all I can say is this book has impacted me. It's got beautiful art. It has, the story, of course, is the plotting is so engaging and so intelligent, but yet it doesn't sacrifice the humanity and the character and the emotion, which some of the experience of Hickman I've had already in the past his writing has come across as kind of clinical to me. It's come across as very like, wow, that's very cerebral and impressive from a storytelling perspective, but I didn't feel the humanity. I didn't feel the people. It didn't move me to emotion. This book has totally done that. Then on top of those things, it's thematic. I don't mean thematic like, hey, look, it's the theme of a Western. I mean thematic in the terms of truths of the world, where it talks about whether we're talking about themes of love versus betrayal, themes of religion versus anti-religion, themes of good versus evil, themes of I'm struggling now to just talk off the top of my head, but you get what I'm saying, I hope. It has so much to say about so many different aspects of life. And he'll tell a story. You can have like one issue and be like, this issue kind of speaks to that. And then he moves on, and it never detracts from the story as a whole. It feels like a magician with a hat, and he's constantly pulling different things out of it. And you're like, oh my gosh. it's wonderful. And watching Nick Dragotta's art improve, like I told you, like I'm able to see now, like at this scale of reading it this way, I could look back to like volume 1 and go, oh yeah, it's like night and day improvement to me. Like you can tell all this work that he's doing has built up his skills. And I'm not a guy who normally notices coloring too much. For me, coloring is either good or not good. But this book, along with a few others we've been reading, you know, like with the Brubaker books, and I'm really enjoying the coloring that we're getting in Firepower. But this book in particular, the coloring in this, it's made me care about colorists. I mean, I could go on about all sorts. I could probably start talking about the lettering if I start really thinking about it. Like, this book is a sum of its parts. No detail, I think, was left uncared about. It matters. Everything in this book matters. And I am, as a reader, completely engaged because of that. I'm never treated like I'm stupid. I'm never treated like whatever. The writer just needed to get a paycheck, so he filled his page. I'm never treated that way. I'm treated issue after issue of a project that feels like it means something to everyone that was involved. And this feels like a magnum opus. That's what I'm reading in this book. It feels like this is a work that, unfortunately, because it's an indie book and because it's called East of West and because the covers look kind of like they belong on a novel rather than a comic book, I think this is a book that went unnoticed by a lot of people when they see, you know, like what I'm showing on the screen here, because we do judge book by its cover. You know, I talked about how that bridge book, I don't know if I want to read a book about a bridge, even though I know Tomasi is a really good writer and he probably has something to say, because who would write a book about a bridge otherwise? That's just the way we are. And I wouldn't have picked this book up if it wasn't for a ton of people convincing me to. So I'm glad that we do this show. I'm glad everyone that's listening is hearing this, because this is a book that you should own the whole series too, I think. And this is a book that I'm going to reread. And I can't say that about most of the comics I own, right? I enjoyed maybe the first time and I was like, yeah, cool. This is a book I'm going to reread multiple times, because even though I know the outcome of what happens, like when we do this show, hearing you describe like the scenes and going to be able to revisit some of the dialogue portions, I'm just like, this was so good. And I love these characters. I just want to keep talking about it until my voice gives out. But you know, obviously we have to end the show. I'm amazed. I'm hoping that when I read issue 45 and we do the next episode, that my enthusiasm is at this level or even higher. I'm astounded by this book. The end.
Okay, well, Ash knows how to land a plane. There we go. I mean, so much of what Ash says is the same way that I feel. Y'all already know that. I'll just share the part that I said I was going to share. And this is when volume 9 came out. It said, the penultimate trade, collecting the fan favorite story of love at the end of the world, collects East of West number 39 through 42. Hollywood news. Amazon Studios has put in development as an hour-long genre drama series from Jonathan Hickman and Nick Dragotta. Nick Dragotta, excuse me. They are teaming with Robert Kirkman, who will executive produce via Skybound Entertainment's First Look deal. The show will be created and executive produced by Hickman and Nick Dragotta and written by Hickman. Also executive producing alongside Skybound's Kirkman will be Dave Alpert, Sean First, and Brian First. Dice. Not sure who Dice was. People saw the vision, and Amazon Studios had optioned the same Amazon Prime, the same people that had brought about Ed Brubaker's first show that he got to write with Nicholas Winding Refn of the film Drive, of that fame, that came out in 2011 with Ryan Gosling, uh, Isaac, is it Edgar Isaacs? What am I thinking? Forgetting the dude from Deus Ex Machina. Oscar Isaac, and Carey Mulligan. So they had, and then they saw this vision and they had optioned it as well. Now I do know that it kind of ended up getting in production. I want to say production hell, but it didn't move forward past the pilot getting scripted because of some things that had happened and some changes that were requested. So yes, studio meddling and whatnot, reared its ugly head again. But people see the vision, and similar to how Rick Remender's Deadly Class, got produced, it got out. The Russo brothers, executive produced it and everything, and then it didn't get as much love, and it was set, it didn't get a second series, but now it's getting a second breath of life because it finally ended up getting out of there onto Netflix, and then around the world as it was independently going over in Germany and the Philippines and this and that. Like, it ended up being number one on there for a while for each place. So there is hope that East of West could be picked up by someone else and taken in, and I hope it does, for all of our sake and for the people that have never even heard about the book, because as we go through this, as Ash said, especially when it comes to the dialogue, the stories, the relationships, how things progress, it is very, very much set up to be one of those shows. And what I love about it is that they just didn't leave it at that. They didn't just say, we got an idea for a show, let's make it a comic book first and see if someone picks it up. That happens a lot, and sometimes the book is good and sometimes the book is underserved because it's really just a means to an end to get it to TV. But when Ed Brubaker, when Nick Dragata and Jonathan Hickman and Sean Phillips, when they sit down to craft a story, they appreciate and they have a love for the comic book format so that they make a product that is right by us, right by the people that they want to sell it to. And it is so potent and so strong that it can transcend our medium that we love so much and go to a broader audience. And as people who love these books, I appreciate the creators, and I would like to see them get even more out of it, that they put into it. I want to see them successful, because the more successful Nick Dragata can be, the more successful that Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker and Jonathan Hickman can be, the more we can get stuff like this. They don't have to take those DC deals for Nick to do a Batman black and white story, even though it was dope. They don't have to take a Marvel deal and, for the Brinks truck to back up to them, and then maybe we get something that we don't love as much as East of West. They can just say, hey, I don't have to worry about that stuff at all. Let me just focus on this, get these stories out that I'm interested in, and then we get them in the comic book form, and then we get it possibly in the movie form and all that other stuff. But that's that. Thank you for everyone who has been joining us along this ride and taking this journey with us. We appreciate it. Pick up volume 10. Come back with us. Ash is going to read it tonight. He's not going to go to sleep.
Ooh, yeah, I gotta know. I'm so close now. There's only 3 issues. I can't believe
3.
and it's gonna feel really weird though too. Like, it's gonna be like when Return of the Jedi was over. You're like, I got those 3 amazing films, but that's it. And that's the inevitability of things. All good things must come to an end. But yeah, I just so good. This is so good. If this never gets done into a TV series, so be it. Not everything gets to do that. The reason I just want it is because I see so much potential in it, and I see also it reaching an audience that would probably never pick this up, right, as a comic book, and just not because of the quality of the work, but just because they don't read, they're not going to pick up comic books. And I just, Nick Dragata's art, while he's not the greatest illustrator that I've ever, seen, he's conceptually so compelling, and I like his designs. And I just think about, like, this would be so awesome to see his concepts turned into real things, You know, like we were talking about tonight about just that bridge scene of the limo, you know, on the bridge. And it was a hover car. Like it didn't have wheels. Of course, the escort vehicles are military vehicles with big wheels and stuff. Like just his way of thinking. It sounds silly when I'm saying it out loud, but like his way of thinking visually is appealing, and I want to see this world. And that's what I think a TV show would allow to be more visually fleshed out. Some of these concepts and designs and seen real. Someone else in the comments had mentioned they wanted to see an animation of this, and I'm not trying to knock anyone's ideas, but I wouldn't want to see that, because what could an animation give me that the book hasn't? I mean, just make the pictures move, but the pictures already move in my brain. The only thing that would excite me about an adaptation for this would be live action. And like, again, the best thing I can example is point Westworld. If you see some of the great designs and the way that they just approach that from a visual standpoint and from an acting standpoint, because that's another thing. These characters, they're so juicy with their dialogue and the way they. Can you not imagine? Like we could have a fan casting service about this. Like, great actors delivering these lines that are in these books would just be like, oh, I just got to hear it. You know, like I just want to see. So we could go on and on forever. We got to wrap up. We had a long show. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Skip, for doing the show with me tonight and geeking out. I hope you guys will be here very soon. And why am I showing that we're not playing? Well, I'm going to wrap up. I'm getting the hourglass on my YouTube stream, so hopefully it's still running. Any final words, Skip, before we go?
Nope. Thanks to everyone for being here with us, and we will see you in 2 weeks.
All right, guys. Take care, and see you soon.